Thank you. It's been so long since I sat over here, I forgot how the mic works. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Planning Advisory Committee. It is 6:06. And I would like to let you know that Councillor Ernst has sent his regrets for tonight's meeting. He had another commitment. And before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Also, before we start, I would like to acknowledge that unfortunately, since our last meeting, we've lost one of our committee members, Jerry Ralston, and he's really going to be missed for many, many reasons. He definitely contributed greatly to a lot of our meetings and certainly kept things lively. So remember him with affection, and we're going to miss him. So I'm hoping that everybody's had the chance to look at the agenda. So would somebody like to move? We approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Mr. Whitcomb. Any additions, deletions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Contrary minded? Agenda approved. I'd like to go on now and look at the Planning Advisory Committee meeting notes from November 24th of 2021. Again, I find it so hard to believe it's been that long since we had a meeting, but hopefully that's a good sign. Would somebody like to move the approval of the minutes? Moved by Collins, seconded by Councillor Halverson. Any errors or omissions? No, not seeing any. All in favor? Contrary minded? Minutes approved. So we're moving down to new business, and we're looking first at the amendment to the land use bylaw by deleting Schedule G vending. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Arthur.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Arthur McDonald. I'm the Director of Community Development. The first item on the agenda tonight is an amendment to the land use bylaw by deleting Schedule G vending. During the council meeting of May 10th, 2022, council passed the following motion: to undertake a planning report and draft vending bylaw, which would include a map showing permitted areas for vending, and amend the land use bylaw to delete Schedule G vending, and that motion was carried by council. The development of a new vending bylaw has been addressed in a separate report that will be going to council. This report focuses on an amendment to the land use bylaw to delete Schedule G vending from the land use bylaw. Upon completion and adoption, the vending will be solely regulated through the new vending bylaw, and the LUB will be silent in this regard. Any amendment to the MPS and or LUB must be evaluated pursuant to the statements of provincial interest. The proposed amendment is considered not to be contrary to any provincial interest statements as shown in the table provided in the report. Schedule G vending of the land use bylaw includes a section on yard sales. As yard sales will not be covered under the vending bylaw, it would be best to maintain these provisions, and they have been substituted therefore under Part 6.12 of the land use bylaw under these proposed amendments. Therefore, it is recommended that the Planning Advisory Committee schedule a public participation meeting to receive public input on the proposed amendments as described in Attachment D in the report, to delete Schedule G vending from the land use bylaw, and then report back to council with their recommendation. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. So would anybody like to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Halverson, seconded by Mayor Risser. Any discussion or questions? Mayor Risser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question. Arthur, are you imagining, and I'm just thinking about the transitional piece, are you imagining that the second reading of the new vending bylaw and the second reading of any requirement to delete the vending provisions from the land use bylaw would happen at the same meeting? Yeah, I figured that.
Yes, that's what I'm working towards, and I think I've scheduled March 21st for that date. So just to let people know. But because there's two statutes that we're dealing with in two different timeframes, it's going to be, what I'm trying to do now is get the public participation programs finished and complete. And then go to council for first reading, and then hold both the final and second reading the same evening.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I just didn't want any regulatory confusion or a gap. So
Yeah.
I figured you were on top of that. I just wanted to double check.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Halverson.
Through the chair to Arthur, I'm just, perhaps could you just eliminate why the yard sales will remain in the planning documents and not be pulled out like the vending? I'm just curious what the differentiation was.
Well, they're a little bit different in type. Yard sales, I would never consider as vending. I don't think people, whenever they set up a yard sale in their home, it's site specific, it's items from the home that people usually put on tables right out front of their lawn. They don't normally think about coming in and getting a vending permit. Most of them don't even consider themselves vendors. It's a one-time, usually a 1 or 2 time per year Saturday morning type of thing. So that's why I felt that those provisions should be still kept and part of the land use bylaw, because it is a use of land, because they're on their land. So I think it was appropriate to do that and keep vending as, like most people would think a vendor is a small business that sets up and it's almost like a retail trade type of business. So that's the rationale.
I guess the only concern I have with that is, and I haven't seen it in the town, but I'm just thinking, what if, what if we do have someone who week after week after week does hold a yard sale, and it's not just household goods. I mean, but they're calling it a yard sale because it's on their property. Do we have provisions to deal with that?
We will, well, we currently do under Schedule G, and they will be put under 612 of the land use bylaw. So yard sales are permitted in any zone. Subject to provided that the articles for sale may include any tangible personal property of the residents conducting the sale. Only 2 yard sales may take place on the property during each calendar year. So that kind of stops people from doing it every day or every weekend type thing.
Yeah, I saw that in the notes. I was just curious, is there, I guess, what is the deterrent? Do we have anything actionable if someone persists in more than, doing a weekly yard sale or something?
We have a long form process like any violation to the land use bylaw.
Okay.
You pretty much have to take them to court and stop the action legally through courts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any further discussion? Not seeing any. So all in favor of the motion? Contrary minded? Motion carried. That brings us on now in new business to 6B, an amendment to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to delete the architectural control areas. Arthur?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second item on the agenda is an amendment to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to delete the architectural control areas. And this is in keeping with the town's comprehensive community plan and council's direction that the town intends to adopt a new heritage conservation district plan and bylaw and to delete the architectural controlled areas from the MPS and LUB. The Dufferin Street architectural control area will be incorporated within the new heritage conservation district. The Tannery Road architectural control area will be eliminated. This report will cover the deletions of the architectural control areas from the town's MPS and LUB. The adoption of a new Heritage Conservation District Plan and bylaw will be covered under separate document. The existing MPS and LUB provisions are outlined in attachment A of the report. Evaluation criteria, implementation policy 6-19 is outlined in attachment B, and MPS amendments are outlined in attachment C, and the LUB amendments are outlined in attachment D. The proposal involves the creation of a new Heritage Conservation District plan and bylaw, and the deletion of the architectural control areas from the town's MPS and LUB. To ensure consistency and compatibility, the MPS will be amended to remove any inconsistencies with the new Heritage Conservation District plan and bylaw, as well as ensuring that the land use bylaw is consistent with the municipal planning strategy. Again, any amendments to the MPS and LUB must be evaluated pursuant to the statements of provincial interest. The proposed amendment is considered not to be contrary to the provincial interest statements as shown in the table provided in the report. Therefore, it is recommended that the Planning Advisory Committee schedule a public participation meeting to receive public input on the proposed amendments as described in attachments C and D, and report back to council. And I'd like to point out too that staff is trying to coordinate this with the adoption of the new Heritage Conservation District plan and bylaw during the same evening at the second reading of that. Thank you very much. And that is my report.
Thank you, Arthur. So would somebody like to move the motion as read by Mr. McDonald? Moved by Councillor Halverson, seconded by Mayor Risser. Is there any discussion or questions? Mayor Risser.
Just another quick one, Arthur. I was going to ask the same question over again, so you beat me to that one. Although this requires advertisement, so I assume we just advertise them on the same day, because both of these amendments, like an amendment to the MPS and an amendment to the Heritage Conservation District plan and bylaw, would both have to go to the province, so we might not get those on the same day. So we'd advertise them being in effect the same day. I did have one question about what you said about the MPS being amended to align with the Heritage Conservation District plan and bylaw. And I just want to confirm that it's solely with respect to the architectural control areas. There's no other amendments being brought forward to align the MPS with the Heritage Conservation District plan and bylaw. I would have thought it would go the other way around.
We're actually trying to make the MPS and LUB actually silent so that the architectural control provisions are solely regulated through the Heritage Conservation District plan bylaw. So this amendment will not only delete the architectural control areas from the MPS and LUB, but it deletes the Schedule F, the map. So it deletes the Heritage Conservation District map as well, but that map includes the architectural control areas as well as the Heritage Conservation District map, like they're combined on one map. So we'll just delete that map in its entirety.
Yeah, no, and I'm good with all that, but there are no other consequent amendments coming out of the Heritage Conservation District plan to the MPS and LUB, just those ones.
Just the ones in this report that would affect the MPS or LUB, correct?
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other discussion? Not seeing any? All in favor of the motion? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you, Arthur. No further business. Just looking at the next meeting dates, February 27th for the public participation meeting. Arthur, will that work in your timelines for advertising and?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Okay, thank you. No further business? Oh, Colin? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Colin. No further business? Meeting adjourned.